Katniss is a cat. No, seriously, Suzanne Collins wrote Buttercup, the Everdeen's battered tomcat, as Katniss's symbolic mirror. He embodies her survival instincts, trauma, and relationship with Prim.
My sister gets to keep her cat.
This is all based on book canon. In the first chapter of The Hunger Games, we meet Buttercup while he's guarding Prim as she sleeps. Katniss does not like him. She describes him as the world's ugliest cat. Mashed-in nose, half of one ear missing, eyes the color of rotting squash. Half of one ear missing. Remember how Katniss temporarily lost hearing in one of her ears during the first games? And since he's her mirror, he's missing part of his ear? That seems significant. Prim named him Buttercup, insisting that his muddy yellow coat matched the bright flower. Buttercup's muddy yellow fur echoes the bright dandelions that Katniss associates with hope and renewal. And dandelions are edible and nourishing, but buttercup flowers become poisonous when they're damaged, as in chewed up. It's kind of like a metaphor for the harmful effects of trauma, like how that negatively affects people. I know in the movies they recast the cat. It starts out as a black and white cat and then it ends up orange, the way Buttercup's supposed to look. It's not significant to this video. It's just a movie thing. Moving on. Prim rescued Buttercup when he was a scrawny, flea-ridden, worm-infested kitten, like how Katniss rescued her family from starvation. She saw Buttercup as an unnecessary burden, another mouth to feed, and Katniss originally tried to drown him in a bucket. Horrifying, but she stops because Prim begs her. When Katniss was 11 and wasting away from starvation, a huge driving force for her survival was keeping Prim alive. The fateful day Peeta gave her the bread, the Everdeens were nearing death's door. They had no money and nothing to eat for 3 days. Katniss went out in the pouring rain to try to trade Prim's old baby clothes, but no one wanted them. But Katniss refused to go home empty-handed. She was thinking of Prim's hollow cheeks and cracked lips. She had to find something for her sister. So she started digging through trash and ended up at the Mellark bakery. Finding nothing in the dumpster, she collapses to the ground. Peeta sees her, burns the bread, and throws this lifeline to her. Do you see this overlap with Buttercup? The cat was sick and weak, drowning in water like Katniss in the rain, and they both stayed alive because Katniss loves Prim too much to watch her suffer. The water really solidifies this link for me. Both Buttercup and Katniss became hunters. They were naturally skilled. He was a born mouser. Katniss started feeding him the entrails from what she caught, and he stopped hissing at her despite his grudge against her from the drowning. Understandably, they're both nicer when they're being fed, and I see his previous hissing mirroring Katniss's anger with herself when she was struggling to feed her family, but that dissipated once she got a handle on hunting. Katniss narrates, entrails, no hissing. This is the closest we will ever come to love. As the story goes on though, Katniss's capacity to love grows. Overall, Katniss has a pretty low opinion of herself. She thinks nobody likes her, which isn't at all true, but she uses these judgmental words describing Buttercup. He's always ugly and awful and old, and she often calls herself selfish and awful and yada yada yada. Once Katniss volunteers and she's going to be going into the game, she's comforted by the thought of Buttercup watching over Prim as she sleeps. If she cries, he will nose his way into her arms and curl up there until she calms down and falls asleep. I'm so glad I didn't drown him. Also, gotta mention how Katniss's nickname from Gale is catnip, a plant that makes cats happy, and Katniss was sometimes actually happy when she was in the woods with Gale. She's the most natural, true version of herself when she's in the woods hunting like this. So it makes sense she has her catnip essence in the forest. In chapter 1 of each book in the trilogy, Buttercup is there, without fail. Did you notice this before? In Catching Fire, chapter 1, Katniss returns to her old house in the Seam, and Buttercup is wailing at the back door. They both feel out of place in Victor's village and spend time in the Seam house, and they develop a new bond. Katniss still calls him hideous, but she feeds him beaver fat and pets his ears, and they're both eating better now, and Buttercup wants this affection from her. He nudges her for pets, like how Katniss craves more comfort and affection after everything she went through. She needs some TLC. However, when Katniss tries to carry him out of the house with her, he bolts as soon as they're in public, disappearing under a bush. Katniss can't be her authentic self in public anymore, and Buttercup represents that core version of her, so he disappears as soon as other people are watching. It happens the moment she's on the street. Katniss's life is a lot more complicated now. She has more to think about than keeping her family fed. That's the last real interaction Katniss has with Buttercup in Catching Fire. Mockingjay opens with Katniss visiting the ruins of District 12. When she gets to her house in Victor's village, there's old Buttercup. Katniss was deep in thought, thinking about what it would mean to be the Mockingjay and how she can't just run away because Peeta might still be alive. And right after she has this thought, Buttercup appears, hissing with an arched back and flat ears. He's all wound up, just like her, and he also beat the odds and stayed alive. Katniss tells herself Buttercup's been subsisting on mice, avoiding the more likely reality that he's been eating bodies. Katniss feels responsible for the deaths of the people in 12, as if she survived at their expense, like Buttercup swallowing these people up in order to stay alive. Katniss calls Buttercup over to her, but he refuses. Their bond is fractured. Katniss is fractured, and she has this internal separation from herself, and Buttercup has been externally separated from her, stuck in 12. It lines up really well. Katniss was granted this visit to 12 in the hopes it would bring her back to reality so she could be the Mockingjay. The way she's finally to get Buttercup to come close to her is by asking if he wants to see Prim. They're both tethered to Prim. She's their number one. Katniss grabs Buttercup, she stuffs him into her hunting bag so she can hide him on the hovercraft. And when she comes back to 13, she's willing to be the Mockingjay now. She's rekindled this drive to fight. She's not trying to run away anymore. Buttercup isn't happy to be going to 13, and Katniss doesn't like it there either. But he goes, and he's included in Katniss's Mockingjay deal. It's the first demand she enlists to Coin and everyone. I know it's different in the movie. My family gets to keep our cat. She leads with it because she thinks it's the most minor request, but it still causes an uproar. But 13 eventually agrees to it, and this actually benefits Katniss a lot because her family is moved up to the top level where they have an above ground window so Buttercup can go out and hunt for his own food. Katniss really hates being underground, so this window is a relief, and she's also given the privilege to go outside and hunt. There's a catch to getting her way with Buttercup though. If he causes any security problems, he'll be shot immediately. Just like how Katniss is threatened by Coin that if she deviates from the rebel mission at all, her and the other victors' immunity from punishment will be moot. In other words, if I step out of line, we're all dead. Moving on to the attack on District 13. So during the bombing evacuation, Prim returns to their family's compartment for Buttercup, running into danger to help the helpless. Reminder, Peeta warned 13 that they're going to be bombed. Everyone was evacuated further underground. This goes down a bit different from the movie. It's way less dramatic. There's no random sprinklers, the bombing hasn't started yet, and Katniss doesn't fall down the stairs and get stomped on. It's all super organized, and Katniss gets to the safety zone, she's given supplies and an area for her family, and she's waiting for a while until her mom shows up. She finds out Prim is missing, and she visualizes what Prim would have done, tracking her like prey on a hunt, and realizes she went back for Buttercup. Katniss is able to wedge her hand through the closing bunker door, and she and Mrs. Everdeen are trying to get the guards to open it and let her out, but they don't. They just halt closing the door, and Katniss hears Prim and Gale on the stairs. They're almost there, and they run into the bunker. It's not a big action sequence like the movie. I'm not saying this change is good or bad. I just want to be clear on the differences since we're breaking down all the symbolism in the book. This moment also foreshadows Prim's death. She put herself in danger to help the helpless, here with Buttercup, and then later as a medic in the Capitol. Prim says how she couldn't leave Buttercup behind a second time, and he was pacing the room and howling. He'd come back to protect them. It makes me think back to Katniss's rescue in the Quarter Quell arena. In those final moments, she was trying to protect Peeta, shouting to draw attention to her and away from him. Peeta's calls for Katniss are literally described as a howl. And we know the rebels pulled Katniss out of the arena, just barely getting away from the Capitol crafts coming in to attack them. It's another very close call, like with the bunker. Maybe I'm not supposed to be making that connection, but overall, I think the significance of this is foreshadowing Prim's death, especially since Gale is the one with Prim here, and he's also linked to her death. He helped devise the double bombing strategy as a way to help the war effort, and this strategy was meant to target people's compassion. Prim's compassion is on full display here. Katniss is upset Prim did this, obviously, and she takes it out on the cat, which is like taking out the anger on herself, since Katniss is the cat. She's holding him by the scruff of his neck, she's hissing at him, saying how she should have drowned him when she had the chance. Prim going to rescue Buttercup is very Katniss, the way she fights for the people she cares about, even if it's risky. It's a trait in herself she struggles with sometimes, like she wishes she didn't care so intensely. Throughout this, Katniss thinks about how much less time and attention she's been giving Prim since the games, and she feels guilty that Gale was the one who checked their compartment and not her. They share some sister quality time here, reconnecting a bit. Meanwhile, Buttercup is close by, being comforted. Katniss finally opens up about how distressed she is by seeing Peeta's deterioration, and Prim stops petting Buttercup and basically starts petting Katniss instead. She's hugging her and brushing her hair out of her face. Prim lays the groundwork for Katniss to make the whole crazy cat connection of Snow taunting her with Peeta. She says she doesn't think Snow will kill him because then he won't have anyone left Katniss wants. He wouldn't be able to hurt her. Crazy Cat is the overt display of this connection between Katniss and Buttercup. It starts out as a simple way to entertain everyone in the bunker. Katniss uses a flashlight and the cat runs around trying to catch it like a laser pointer toy. On the third night of Crazy Cat, Suzanne loves her threes, Katniss has the realization about Peeta. Crazy Cat becomes the metaphor for my situation. I am Buttercup. Peeta, the thing I want so badly to secure, is the light. As long as Buttercup feels he has the chance of catching the elusive light under his paws, he's bristling with aggression. That's how I've been since I left the arena, with Peeta alive. When the light goes out completely, Buttercup's temporarily distraught and confused, but he recovers and moves on to other things. That's what would happen if Peeta died. But the one thing that sends Buttercup into a tailspin is when I leave the light on but put it hopelessly out of his reach, high on the wall, beyond even his jumping skills. He paces below the wall, wails, and can't be comforted or distracted. He's useless until I shut the light off. It's under the weight of this revelation that I truly begin to break. So plain and simple, Katniss is Buttercup, but this metaphor goes beyond just this moment. It's part of the entire trilogy. Katniss stays up that night talking to Finnick about it and making knots. She holds up the knots to Buttercup and he swipes and bites at them. They're both using this rope to channel their anguish. Peeta's warning really did help save both Katniss and Buttercup. They had 10 extra minutes of evacuation time because of this warning, and Prim, Gale, and Buttercup didn't get to the safety zone until a couple minutes before the first blast. Both Gale and Peeta help Katniss survive, but Peeta always helps first. Like, he gave her the bread, which was the catalyst to get her out in the woods to hunt and forage, where she met Gale and teamed up with him to help feed their families together. He's the secondary helper on that timeline. He helps Katniss with things she can do herself, and Peeta helps her with things that are more beyond her control. They're both still very helpful. It's just like Peeta is kind of the root of things. All right, let's take it home. The big tearjerker moment between Katniss and Buttercup at the end of Mockingjay. The day begins with Katniss coming out of a very meaningful nightmare. In it, she's laying in a deep grave and she sees every dead person she knows drop a shovel of ashes down on her. She's being buried alive, slowly suffocating, and when she tries to shout for them to stop, her mouth fills with ashes. I hate it. But it clearly shows that Katniss is buried in grief, and the weight of this mental burden is slowly killing her. She still has a desire to live, though. She's begging for help in this dream. When she wakes up, she still hears the scraping of the shovel, and it's Peeta planting the primroses. Reminder, we're talking about the book here. It plays out differently in the movies. This dream, Peeta's return, and the way he acknowledges her loss like this marks a turning point for Katniss. She begins the process of coming out of her paralyzing depression that day. She showers, changes her clothes, and leaves the house for the first time since returning home from the capital. And once she started this process of coming back to herself, Buttercup shows up. Her survival instincts have been reawakened. Shortly after coming home from being out, Buttercup is there hissing at her. Like her, he's gaunt and scarred. The movie does a good job of matching the dialogue here, but here's what it is in the book. She says, "It was a waste of a trip. She's not here." Buttercup hisses back, "She's not here. You can hiss all you like. You won't find Prim." Buttercup meows, hopefully hearing her name. Then Katniss throws a pillow towards him, which he dodges, shouting, "Go away. There's nothing left for you here. She's not coming back. She's never, ever coming back here again." I'm not a real actor, okay? She gets another pillow to throw, but she starts to cry, clutching the pillow, saying, "She's dead. She's dead, you stupid cat. She's dead." She tries to get Buttercup to leave, but he won't. He's circling around her as she sobs until she passes out. She can't make Buttercup go away, just like she can't make her own painful feelings go away. They're both demanding to be seen. Katniss needed to have this huge emotional outburst. She had to stop holding everything inside and numbing out. How many times have you cried over the scene? Be honest. That night, Buttercup is at her side, guarding her in bed, like he used to do with Prim, like how she used to do with Prim. Even without Prim to protect, Katniss is still a protector. In the morning, she cleans up Buttercup's wounds and removes a thorn in his paw, similar to how she cleaned herself up the day before. Her hair was horribly matted and her healing skin was flaking off in playing card-sized sheets. I'm sorry for that image, but I didn't write it. Suzanne did. Katniss had her own claws too. Her fingernails were overgrown and she cut them off with a knife. And this thorn in his paw, roses have thorns. And yesterday, Katniss finally took the white rose from Snow out of her bedroom and threw it into the fire. When she removed Buttercup's thorn, they both cry again, and this time they're comforting each other. She's able to receive comfort now after taking care of her physical body and having that emotional release. And since Katniss is ready to grieve with someone else, entrails, she finally calls her mother and they cry together about Prim. Afterwards, Peeta comes over with freshly baked bread, Greasy Say cooks breakfast, and Katniss gives Buttercup all of her bacon, from entrails to beaver fat to fresh bacon. It's this combination of having the strength to care for herself and accept care from the people who love her. Buttercup and Katniss embody the same wounded survivor. Isn't that amazing? I really didn't appreciate the depth of this symbolic connection until I started working on this video. It's woven into everything so well, just impeccable. Let's all blow a kiss to Suzanne Collins. I'm sure there's even more examples of this Katniss Buttercup connection, so if you know any, please share them in the comments. I'd love to read them. Side note, I've officially launched a Patreon. You can find it linked in the description. On the Patreon, you can find ad-free versions of these videos. They're also available to download as podcasts to your favorite streaming app. I'll be hosting regular live streams there to talk about all things Hunger Games. There's a private members-only chat, and much more to come, so check it out in the description below if you're curious. Shout out to my first ever patrons. Thank you so much for your support. I just launched it a few days ago, so thank you so much for jumping on board. That about wraps things up. Thank you so much for watching, and if you haven't already, subscribe for more Hunger Games analyses and do the thumbs up thing.